The Gold and Silver Pawn Shop used to be a regular pawn store, until it became a famous spot for a reality TV show called Pawn Stars. Now the workers spend every day making great deals for us to watch and learn from, so sit back and enjoy the video as we go over some of the most expensive things they've bought. Number 5. $250,000 for Maurice Sendak sketches. In the same season as the George Washington find, Rick came across something he couldn't help but have. A collector offered him the original sketches that became Maurice Sendak's children's book classic, Where the Wild Things Are. Rick was clearly awed by the drawings when he saw them in person. It was the greatest book ever written, Rick told the dealer. When I was a kid, I was fascinated by the pictures. It was so different than any other children's book. Because Sendak never sold prints of his work for Where the Wild Things Are, the sketches were one of a kind. After consulting with an art expert who told him he could expect to net $310,000 for the sketches, Rick talked the owner into selling the lot for $250,000.
So, an amazing point to any vintage art.
So where in the world did you get these?
Well, a friend of mine.
Ahead, that might not be a bad deal. I need to talk to my art guy because I need his advice. This would be the big...
His works are really priceless. What I would value the collection at is about $375,000.
Whoa.
Number 4. $111,000 for 3,000 ounces of silver. The second largest purchase in Pawn Stars history was a lot easier for the shop to verify the value of. When a customer rolled into the shop with a dolly loaded down with 3,000 ounces of silver bars and coinage, the Harrisons knew they had a deal in their hands. Because of the significant amount of money changing hands and the ease with which a scammer could fake a silver bar with a different metal at its core, Rick drilled into the center of the bars to discern that they were purely made of the precious metal. Testing silver is a little work, but it's not rocket science, Rick said, before explaining how to test silver with nitric acid. If the silver he extracted for testing turned a milky white color when he exposed to the acid, it was pure. After verifying that it was real, he purchased it for roughly market rate at a cost of $111,000. Number 3. $95,000 for a 1932 Lincoln Roadster. The Harrisons had to spend big to get a luxury Lincoln Roadster built in the middle of the Great Depression. A beautifully maintained mint and cream colored roadster with a massive V12 engine hiding under a gigantic hood was too good to let leave the shop. The 1932 Roadster was an attempt by Lincoln's parent company Ford to lure drivers away from the competitors at Cadillac. It was priced to move at $4,000 in 1932, roughly $70,000 in today's money. Rick and the old man went above and beyond that price point to make sure that they walked away from the deal with a car. For the decadent 150 horsepower classic car from 1932, they offered a cash buy of nearly $100,000. They didn't have to wait long to get the money back, however. The owner turned right around and used the $95,000 he made in the deal to buy gold from the pawn shop. Number 2. O.J. Simpson's escape car. The Harrisons had to make a tough decision when perhaps the most famous car in American history fell into their laps. O.J. Simpson's white Ford Bronco has been seen by millions of Americans, with the former NFL star leading Los Angeles police on the world's most well-known low-speed chase ahead of his eventual acquittal on murder charges. The current owner of the iconic Bronco brought it to the stars of the show looking to sell. Given the infamy of this particular Bronco, the seller wanted a hefty sum. He asked for $1.25 million from the Harrisons, about $1 for every 100 Americans who watched O.J. run. Ultimately, Rick had to turn him down and send him off to find another buyer interested in macabre history. Number 1. $90,000 for Mary Ford's 1961 Gibson SG Les Paul guitar. Gibson's Les Paul signature guitars cost a pretty penny as it is. But when the well-crafted guitars are connected to the legendary songwriter whose name is on the instrument, they're worth quite a bit more. That explains why the Harrisons felt they should shell out $90,000 for a 1961 Les Paul guitar that belonged to Paul's wife Mary. All pawn shops trading guitars at some point, but the show's outsized stature as a purchaser of rare antiques made it a fitting stop for owners of this particular instrument. For the uninitiated, Les Paul and Mary Ford were a wildly successful singing duo in the 1950s with 28 hit records to their name. They hosted popular radio and television variety shows together throughout the decade. That Mary herself helped put this guitar on tracks like the #1 hit, How High the Moon, made its value skyrocket. That's all we have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let us know by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. On that note, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.